So we've been looking at Solomon. We've got this week and next week. By the way, the new books are up here. If you want to grab one when you leave. We've got one more week in this one, and then we start something new. So we've been looking at Solomon. Solomon, remember David wanted to build the temple, and God said, no, not going to happen. Because you're a man of war and you have, blood on your hands, kind of thing, and so it's going to pass on to your son. But I will guarantee you that someone from your family will sit on the throne forever. Okay. So Solomon comes along and has a conversation, a dream, if you will, but a conversation with God, and God says, tell me what you want. And Solomon says, give me wisdom. Give me wisdom. God said, okay, I'll give you that. But since you didn't ask for other stuff, I'm going to give that to you as well. So Solomon was the wisest and richest man of his time in the whole world. His reign started out great. If you want to get an idea of some of the things that he did, look at Ecclesiastes chapters 1 and 2, and that will tell you he built aqueducts, he built vineyards, he built buildings, he did tremendous things. So it was a time of peace and prosperity, not only for Solomon, but for the people of Israel as well. There are signs that we encounter along the way. Driving. One sign will say caution, another sign will say yield, another sign will say, okay, in 2 miles, merge left, right lane closed. And I've seen some people, and I'm sure you have, seen some people who will ignore those signs. They'll just say, they'll pass along by, and then they'll complain and, honking a horn to try to get in to merge, which they should have done way back. We're given caution signs along the way. What has it been? Maybe 2 years ago now. I had this thing put in, and I had ignored, wasn't really aware of all the warning signs that was going on. I just kind of lived my life and did my thing, and you're getting older and yada yada yada, and attributed it to that, and then. Stuff happened, and bing, bang, boom, I had to have this thing put in. It's important, I think, to pay attention to the caution signs, whether it's physical, medical, or whether it's driving, whatever it might be, that we pay attention to the warning signs. Well, that's what's happening here in our lesson this morning. Solomon was given a land that was peaceful and prosperous. He was prosperous, but it's kind of like Viola's dad used to say. Then he got the big head. Okay, he just kind of got caught away with himself. God said to him, a covenant with him, that if you'll do what I tell you to do, you will continue to be blessed and be a blessing to others. I will bless your reign like you've never seen, but if you do what I tell you to do. And there were some things that he told Solomon not to do. Those are the things that he did. And so we're coming now to a point where it's very, very dark days in the land of Israel. It's very dark days. Solomon has completely gone off the rails. We're going to see different kind of things that indicate that. And so God's going to hold him accountable to all the stuff that he has kind of diverted and gone his own way. Okay, so we're going to see how this guy who God had blessed immeasurably, had wisdom, was known throughout the world, how he then fails. Okay, but we're also going to see God's grace. So let's take a look at it here. Number one, a divided heart leads to sin. 1 Kings chapter 11, verses 4 to 8. Someone read that.
As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. He followed Ashereth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. So Solomon did evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did not follow the Lord completely, as David his father had done. On a hill east of Jerusalem, Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the detestable god of Moab, and for Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. He did the same for all his foreign wives who burned incense and offered sacrifices to their gods.
Okay. There's a lot contained in here now. We're going to see a guy who slowly over time gets farther and farther and farther away from what God had instructed him and his relationship with God. First inkling that we get here is in verse 4, for when Solomon was old, his wives, plural. God never intended for polygamy, never did. Okay, that was man's idea. Okay, and he expressly forbid anybody from Israel, particularly the king or the priest, whoever, expressly prohibited them from marrying foreign wives. So if you jump all the way down to verse 8, you're told, and he did so for all the foreign wives. All the foreign wives. So you jump up into Ecclesiastes, and we're told that he had what the Bible refers to as wives and concubines. You might have any idea what a concubine is?
It's another wife.
No. Okay, it's just somebody to shack up with, basically, in our term. Somebody to shack up with. So he had wives, but that wasn't enough. Okay, he had to have women that he could have sex with at any point. Okay, now that's one indication. Now watch. So when he was old, his wives. Now watch. His wives turned away his heart after other gods.
Did David do that too? Did David have multiple wives? I thought that was a practice back then, but I did.
Well, yeah, it was a practice, but God never intended it.
I know.
Yeah.
I was just asking if David did.
I think he did. But yeah, you're right. It was a common cultural practice. It was never God's design for that. Now, I want to be careful here. When Solomon was old, his wives turned his heart away. Now remember, they're foreign wives. So when he marries a person from a neighboring country, if he's not strong enough, she begins to influence him. That's what it's saying here. Okay? There's a passage, and again I want to be careful here. There's a passage that Paul teaches, be not unequally yoked, King James, be not unequally yoked with unbelievers. Now, does that forbid a believer and an unbeliever marrying? No, it doesn't. What it does encourage is that could cause problems. Okay? Because a believer has one way of looking at the world. Okay, through the prism of Scripture. Their values are different. Excuse me, their values are different. Their way of thinking is different. Their behaving should be different. Okay? there's often this thing of, well, I'll win him / her over. Okay? That's like saying, I'm going to marry somebody knowing that they use heroin every day and drink a fifth of whiskey a day, and has a history of abusing women, but I'm going to change them. Okay? Give it your best shot. Okay? It says here that they turned his heart away after other gods. Now watch. And his heart was not wholly true. So now we have a mixture of worshiping God with worshiping other gods. So this was all blended now together. Yeah.
Jim, I'm just thinking, how in our infancy as a Christian, we can be all gung-ho about leading other people to Christ, being faithful to church, and everything. But as the years pass, sometimes through our actions, we sort of take for granted the blessings of God, and then we kind of go our own way. We kind of live in our own strength rather than in God's strength.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we tend to back away from the closeness to God, that makes we set ourselves up to be more vulnerable to the attacks of Satan.
Exactly.
So that's probably what he did too.
Yes.
He knew Christ relationally, but
see, who was it that blessed him with wisdom? God. Who's he turning away from here? God. So he started trusting his own wisdom. Thank you. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him. Oh. And that's something that Solomon wrote.
Well, when he wrote all of his laws and stuff, that stele that has all of his laws written on it,
Right.
It has him being blessed by the foreign gods at the top of it.
See?
So I guess his wisdom came from God, but then he let other gods have a credit, because I never, when I taught that, I never thought anything about that.
Yeah.
He had totally turned away.
Um,
Not totally, but he had basically turned away
Yeah.
because he gave the other gods credit for all of this wisdom.
so, if I could do it this way, what's the definition of a carnal Christian? Why do you think Paul, in so many of his writings, talked about this warfare that goes on? Okay, this spiritual warfare that goes on. It was happening here. He had the wisdom of God. God didn't take that wisdom away from him because he was doing this. Okay? In fact, we're going to see God's grace here. But he started trusting in himself. Okay? Okay, it says his heart was not wholly true to the Lord his God. Now, verse 5. Now, this is going to show how far he went. Understand that this was not like one day he woke up and all this was happening. It was a slow digression. Okay? For Solomon went after Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. Verse 7, so then Solomon built a high place of Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, and for Moloch, the abomination of the Ammonites, on a mountain, where? East of Jerusalem. Okay, let me go back. There's two main god here that's mentioned, little g, is the god Moloch. The worship of Moloch, now think about what goes on in our culture. The worship of Moloch involved the sacrifice of children. Okay, the sacrifice of literal sacrifice of children. They would bring them to the altar and then they would burn their kids. It was a sacrifice. Okay? They had gone, and Solomon's kind of leading the way here. They had gotten so far away from worshiping God. Now how is this coming in? Now, notice, Milcom, the abomination of Ammonites, foreign countries. Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Sidonians. Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, and Moloch, the abomination of Ammonites. All of these foreign influences. So why don't we just be a one world kind of organization? Let's just do that. I mean, we ought to be all inclusive. We shouldn't, case in point, we shouldn't have any walls, although somebody's building a wall around their personal place. Isn't that interesting? We shouldn't have any walls. There should be no distance. We should not keep anybody out who wants to come in, period. We should just invite the world. We are a one world organization. Ooh. See here?
So,
I'm sorry.
So it says that he did this for all of his foreign wives.
Yeah.
So do you think that he participated in like the sacrificing?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Sure. It says that, now watch, then verse 7, then Solomon built a high place. And wait a minute, what did he just get through building in Jerusalem? The temple. The temple, the holy place, and then the Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant is, where God dwells. God didn't tell him to build anything else. Okay? What is he doing? Outside, in competition, if you will, outside, he's building these, it doesn't say just these places, it says high places, places of worship, places of sacrifice to these other gods. So now you've got competing worship going on. We're going to go whichever the king's going to go. Well, this week he might be in Jerusalem in the temple. Next week he's going to be out here, in one of these other temples, these other high places. Now watch. And so he did with all his foreign wives, who made offerings and sacrificed to their gods. If he didn't directly, which I think he did, if he didn't directly participate, he sanctioned it. Okay, silence is acceptance, right? He sanctioned it. These wives, he became a weak husband. He became a weak leader. Okay, so he had a divided heart. If you go all the way up into James says, pardon me, a double-minded man is unstable in his ways. A double-minded man is unstable in his ways. Well, now what does that mean, being double-minded? Well, my loyalties are divided. My loyalties are divided. I'm not wholly this way, and I'm not wholly this way. I'm wholly, W-H-O-L-Y. There's a mixture. There's a blending. Why can't we get along with somebody who sacrifices kids? Come on. Why not? We watched a video last night. I would encourage you all to watch this video. It's called The Rainbow Parade. Okay? It's a guy reading this kid's book, illustrated book. And watch for the subtleties in that book. Okay? It's I believe, this is just me, I believe that in large part we're sacrificing our kids. Are we putting them, burning them? No. But you would think that the Supreme Court weighing in on and deciding on the abortion issue, Roe v. Wade, and reversing that would be the end of it. No. They still want to sacrifice their kids. See that? They still want to do that. Now they're finding workarounds. And now they're saying that there could be steep fines for doctors who refuse. There's a pill now out that it's not like the morning after pill. It's an abortion pill. Well, gee, now watch. You'll soon be able to order that through if you don't already. Soon be able to order that through the mail. You don't have to go through a doctor. You can just order it through the mail. Boom.
Isn't China the one that put that out?
Yes.
They put that out. They've been making
Yeah.
their women do that for a long time.
Yeah. So he had gotten so far away from God. Now, did this happen overnight? Again, no. This happens once, it just one step after another step after another. If you say yes here, where are you going to say no here? If you say yes, I'll marry you, even though you don't believe like I believe, and you don't hold to scriptures the way I hold to scriptures, and you don't hold to a relationship with God, you worship the trees. Okay? Remember what Paul said in Romans? We've talked about this before. Romans, Paul said that they would worship the creation rather than the creator. Look what's happening. We're not so far removed from Solomon's day. And the leader sets the tone. As the leader goes, so goes the nation. It's proved out here. Okay? All right. Second, a rebellious heart receives judgment. Ooh, now it's coming down. 1 Kings chapter 11, verses 9 to 13. Someone read that.
The Lord became angry with Solomon because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. Although he had forbidden Solomon to follow other gods, Solomon did not keep the Lord's command. So the Lord said to Solomon, "Since this is your attitude, and you have not kept my covenant and my decrees which I commanded you, I will most certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your subordinates. Nevertheless, for the sake of David your father, I will not do it during your lifetime. I will tear it out of the hand of your son. Yet I will not tear the whole kingdom from him, but will give him one tribe for the sake of David, my servant, for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen."
Okay, so when I'm dealing, or as I'm dealing with clients, there's a saying that I have. The client has a right to self-determine. Client has a right to self-determine. That simply means that I can give you the best advice. I can show you scripture to back up that advice, yada, yada, all that stuff. When you leave my office, you can do whatever the heck you want. I can't stop you. I can't stop you. Because you have a right to choose your path. You're coming to me because you got XYZ problem. Okay? So I can tell you, okay, if you go this way, this is what's going to happen. But if you go this way, there's going to be benefits to it. This way's consequences, this way's benefits. And they can go out of the office, and sometimes after one or two sessions, they'll quit. The client will just quit. Because they don't like what I have to say. I do tend to have a direct approach. Look what happened here. Now the Lord, He's ticked off. That's not King James, that's me. Now watch, because Solomon's heart had turned away from the Lord. Now watch, who had appeared to him not once, but twice. He appeared to him once and said, "I'm going to use you to build the temple." He appeared to him the second time and said, "Whatever it is that you want, go ahead. I love you so much. Go ahead and ask." And that's when he got wisdom, was given wisdom. Now, he both times in those two appearances, Verse 10, and he commanded him concerning this thing, stay away from foreign wives. Stay away from them. That he should not go after other gods. Well, I didn't go after other gods. I went after other women. Yeah. But he did not keep what the Lord commanded. Now watch. Now the hammer's coming down. But there's grace here. So since you don't get it, let me before I get into that, there is a concept, a legal term, a legal concept called 120 day shock. And if you're not familiar with what that is, someone is, you're getting DUIs after DUIs after DUIs. Okay. And on the third DWI or DUI, the judge says, this is the third time. You're out. So what he does is he sentences the guy or the person to 120 days in prison with the general population. Okay? With the general population. What that's meant to do is to wake you up. You're not getting the message. This is the third time that this has happened. You're not getting the message. We revoked your license. You drove with a suspended license. You've had all kinds of fines. You've been busted 3 times for DWIs or DUIs. You're not getting the message. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to go in with the general population. We're going to try to get you lined out. And then after that, you broke probation. So after that, so you're on probation. You break probation, and they have listed out there. You break probation. Let's say you're on 5 years probation. You do the 5 years. You break probation. Anything that's listed on there, you break probation. You go for the full term. Okay, that's what's happening here. You've not listened to me, Solomon. Now there's consequences for your action. Now again, years have passed by here. Let's see here. Therefore, the Lord said to Solomon, since this has been your practice. This has been your practice. This has been your pattern of behavior. I've given you this. I've blessed you with a wonderful kingdom, peace and prosperity. You built all this kind of stuff. You are known worldwide for your vision, for your wisdom. Now watch. Since this has been your practice, and you have not kept the covenant and my statutes that I have commanded you, I'm taking your kingdom away. When I talk to parents about their kids, and they can't get their kid to do X, Y, or Z, the first thing they'll take away is their electronics. Okay, so you can't have your iPad, you can't have any electronics, and here's the mistake: you can't have it for a week. Any kid will fly under the radar. Any kid will fly under the radar for a week. Okay? And then when that week's up, because you've already told them, all you got to do is hang out for a week and you'll get your stuff back. Then when they get their stuff back, within 2 days, they're back to the old behavior again. So I instruct parents, don't give them a time limit. Don't. It's when you decide. Now watch, he says, because this has been your continued practice, I've given you opportunity after opportunity. I appeared to you twice, you refuse it. You keep doing the same thing over and over again. So since you're not going to listen, I want you to listen to this. I'm taking the kingdom away from you. Remember the promise that to David, that someone from your family will sit on your throne forever. Now watch. I will tear the kingdom from you. You notice that word tear. And will give it to your servant, Jeroboam. And we're going to see that in the next group of verses. Now watch. Here's the grace. So here's the accountability. Verse 12 is the grace. Yet for your father's sake, not for your sake, you won't listen. But I'm going to be true to my covenant. For your sake, the sake of your David your father, I will not do it in your days. Remember what he did with Solomon? Saul? He took it while Saul was still alive. But I will tear it out of the hand of your son, Rehoboam. Verse 13. However, I will not tear away all the kingdom. Oh, so I'm not going to have, your whole kingdom is not going to be taken. But I will give one tribe to your son. So now, and what we'll look at week after next, we'll start looking at a divided kingdom, northern and southern kingdom. For the sake of David my servant, and for the sake of Jerusalem that I have chosen. So now, because you just won't listen, you just won't listen. I'm going to take it from you, but I'm not going to take all of it. Your servant Jeroboam and your son Rehoboam, they're going to be fighting with each other, northern and southern kingdom. Okay, and that's going to last for a number of years. Okay. Didn't happen all at once. Didn't happen immediately. God is a patient God, and He longs for us to come back to Him when we get off track. He waits, and He waits, and He waits. He provided him every opportunity, but he refused to do it. So Jeroboam is Solomon's servant. We're going to read about this next. And then Rehoboam is the son of Solomon, and he reigned over Israel. Jeroboam would reign over the northern kingdom. Okay, so we're going to read about that next. So an arrogant heart results in division and strife. 1 Kings chapter 12, verses 3 to 5, and then verses 12 to 17. So I'm going to read that.
But they sent out and called him. Then Rehoboam and the whole assembly. Then Rehoboam and the whole assembly of Israel came and spoke to Rehoboam, saying, Your father made our yoke heavy. Now therefore lighten the burdensome service of your father and his heavy yoke, which he put on us, and we will serve you. So he said to them, Depart for 3 days, then come back to me. And the people departed. So Rehoboam and all the people came to Rehoboam the 3rd day, as the king had directed, saying, Come back to me the 3rd day. Then the king answered the people roughly, and rejected the advice which the elders had given him. And he spoke to them according to the advice of the young men, saying, My father made your yoke heavy, but I will add to your yoke. My father chastened you with whips, but I will chasten you with scourges. So the king did not listen to the people, for the turn of events was from the Lord, that he might fulfill his word, which the Lord had spoken by Rehajah the Solonite to Jeroboam the son of Nebat. Now when all Israel saw that the king did not listen to them, the people answered the king, saying, What share have we in David? We have no inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents, O Israel. Now see to your own house, O David. So Israel departed to their tents, but Rehoboam reigned over the children of Israel who dwelt in the cities of Judah. Okay.
So what we have here now is Rehoboam, the son of Solomon. So with this group of scriptures, Solomon has died. And now his son, Rehoboam, has taken over. Remember now, God said that the kingdom's going to be divided. Rehoboam could be compared to a Pharaoh. Jeroboam is kind of like a Moses you know what I'm saying here, okay? So watch what's going on. So the people come to Jeroboam, excuse me, and said, your father has made our yoke heavy, kind of like what Pharaoh did. Okay, get him to lighten the load here a little bit. And he said to them, go away 3 days. And Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam on the 3rd day. So Jeroboam's coming, and these people are coming after 3. So I'm trying to keep them straight here. Rehoboam says, hey, give me 3 days to think about this. Okay. So now, during that 3 days, Rehoboam is consulting with his advisors over here, and his advisors are saying, lighten the load, or you're going to have rebellion on your hands. Lighten the load. So he brings them back after those 3 days. Now watch. And the king answered the people harshly, and forsaking the counsel that the old men had given, he spoke to them according to the counsel of the young men. My father made your yoke heavy. I'm going to add to your yoke. Mess with me. So now he's all caught up. So now remember, this is what God predicted would happen. This divided kingdom. My father disciplined you with whips. I will discipline you with scorpions. My discipline is going to be worse. So the king did not listen to the people, for it was a turn of affairs brought about by the Lord that he might fulfill his word. Solomon, you won't listen. So now there's going to be all kinds of havoc take place in your kingdom. Verse 16, and when all Israel saw that the king did not listen, people answered the king, what portion do we have in David? We have no inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents, O Israel. Look to your own house, David. So Israel went to their tents, but Rehoboam reigned over the people who lived in the city of Judah. Okay, so Rehoboam is Pharaoh-like. Okay, he's ruling with an iron fist. He doesn't care about the people. He's not loving. This is a very, very dark time for Israel. Now there's these two factions, if you will, the northern and southern kingdom, and we're going to see in the next group, starting week after next, how the northern and southern kingdom are kind of fighting back and forth. Okay. So Solomon didn't pay attention to the wisdom that was given to him. Rehoboam was arrogant. Okay, he was given, the kingdom was passed to him by his father. Okay, in succession, and he ruled with it. I don't care about you. I don't care about you. Kind of reminds you, at least me, of the days in which we live. I don't really care about what's going on with you. I'm going to say I care when it comes vote time, but I really don't care. I'm going to live in my world. I'm going to do my thing. What is that old saying that I hear a lot now? Rules for thee, not for me. And that's what Rehoboam was doing. Rules for thee, not for me. He was enjoying his reign, and he was ruling with an iron fist. And it's all because of what? Why is all this taking place? Because of Solomon. It all traces back to him. You heard me say, it's been some time ago when we were looking at David, that David's household, from the time that he sinned with Bathsheba, from that time forward, was a very, if you look at his family, very, very dysfunctional family. Very dysfunctional. I mean, look what's going on here with his son, Rehoboam. Very dysfunctional. The servant of Solomon is trying to get things made right, trying to pull things back. And Rehoboam won't listen. Okay? So an arrogant heart results in division and strife. Very, very sad time. Questions or comments?
Well, I have to make something.
Sure.
I misspoke a while ago. It
Okay.
was not Solomon's Gravestone. It was Hammurabi.
Say that again now.
It was Hammurabi that had the law stele, not.
Oh, not Solomon. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I misspoke there.
Okay.
Because Hammurabi got his from the foreign gods.
Yes. Which in itself doesn't diminish at all what Solomon did, right?
Right. Right.
Listen to wisdom. Listen to wisdom.
I'm going to say something that's probably going to make me sit my foot in my mouth. But what was that first thing you just said? Just backing up. When did the trend or the tide change?
Here, it started with Solomon.
Well, back up. David.
Oh, David. Oh, yeah. David.
And what did you say David did?
David slept with Bathsheba after he slept with Bathsheba.
You know, I mean, it's amazing how history has a lot to do revolving around women. I'm just saying.
Let's go on back.
I'm just saying. Just like Solomon, what was the ruination of him?
Yep.
There you go.
Yep.
A weak mind.
Yeah.
Well, men are just worms.
No.
I mean, we are. I mean, and it's amazing what a guy will do to satisfy, even though he knows it's wrong. But if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I mean, it's in the Bible, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. You know, like
Well, I mean, and you can, with that line, you can take it all the way back to Adam and Eve.
Sure.
All the way back.
Sure.
I don't know if I want to go any farther.
I know.
know.
But you can't ignore.
No, yeah.
But don't you think that was put in play to make a man either have a backbone or not?
I believe so.
I mean, that's your test.
Sure.
I mean,
I
what would you
tell
mean?
you,
You
yeah,
had never
yeah.
been tested.
Sure. I mean, and it's tough.
Some people make good decisions. Some people really don't.
You're just passing.
Yeah.
No.
No, we're not.
No,
You're not passing
I'm
away.
saying that it's the woman, but the man has the choice.
Sure.
You know, right there. That's how it is right now. We all have a choice.
Yeah.
You know, you have a choice whether you're going to do what's right or do what's
Yeah.
wrong.
And see,
People influence you, but it's you that has that final
That choice.
that's what's so sad, I think, about at this point. Early in Solomon's reign, I mean, he was doing a bang-up job. I mean, God was blessing him and the nation. But he decided to ignore God's command. Don't go down that road. Now, you've heard me refer to Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes is Solomon's journal to you and me. I went down that path. Don't go down that path. He's writing that journal, Ecclesiastes, at the end of his life. Okay? It's part of the wisdom literature that I was talking to you about a few weeks ago. And so he's saying, look, I went down this road. I had wine, women. I had all kinds of comedians come in. I built aqueducts. I did all of this stuff. And then, now I'm going to quote King James here. I like it. It's word better. He says, vanity of vanities, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. When I did all of this stuff, searching for happiness, I thought I could find it in wine, women, and song. I thought I could find it there, but it's not there. That leads back to what we're talking about here. He didn't. Well, I shouldn't say he didn't think. He ignored the wisdom that God had given him about marrying foreign wives.
So apparently he wasn't married at all, or did he have?
No, he had wives within the nation of Israel.
But he had women. He had wives, or did he have one at the time
No,
that God
he
gave
had
him?
multiple. He had
So
multiple.
even still, God blessed him, even though he
Exactly.
was.
And that's
So did God ignore what he was even then? And
no, I don't think God
I'm
ignored
just
it.
saying.
Yeah.
I'm just asking. You know,
Yeah, I don't-
even though God said He doesn't agree with multiple wives, but if He made a covenant with a guy that had already, why would God go down that road?
Well, the covenant, it was renewed with Solomon, but it was the Davidic covenant. It was the covenant with David. He promised David, even though you're not going to build the temple, your family, your sons, will be on the throne forever. Now, that's also forecasting what? The coming of Christ. Okay, because when you go back and look at the lineage, it comes back to David. So he made a choice. Is God going to say, well, you messed up, and so I'm not going to? No, that's God's grace. What is it? Again, that Paul says, where sin doth abound, grace does much more abound. So this is not only, I think, pointing out how far away from God Solomon got. There's still an element of grace there that I'm not going to completely take a kingdom away from you and let somebody else come in. No. The kingdom's going to be divided. Your son and your servant, they're going to be. It's going to be a divided kingdom, and they're going to be warring against each other. That's the penalty. But I'm not taking everything away from you. It's kind of like if your child comes in, breaks curfew, and comes in late, comes in like a half hour late. Do you say you can never go out anymore? You can never drive that vehicle again? No. There's discipline, but you don't say forever and ever and ever. That's God's grace here. Yeah. But you do make a good point there. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else?
So Solomon tried to kill Jeroboam. I wonder what the time frame of that is. Because I'm asking that because I thought he repented at the end of his life.
Solomon? He did.
He did.
Yeah, that's what Ecclesiastes is about.
So that I don't know the time frame in between, because he tried to kill who he knew was going to take over, right? So why would he have done that? I guess if he had repented, I don't know.
Yeah. Let me read the last. Let me read the last few. I'm sorry.
I said we're gonna let her sit by Bob next week.
Let me read the last few verses of Ecclesiastes chapter 12. That's all right. Not only was the teacher wise. Now this is Solomon talking. He's closing out his journal. Not only was the teacher wise, but he had also imparted knowledge to the people. He pondered and searched out and set in order many proverbs. The teacher searched to find just the right words, and what he wrote was upright and true. The words of the wise are like goads, their collected sayings like firmly embedded nails, given by one shepherd. Be warned, my son, of anything in addition to them. Of making many books there is no end, and much study wearies the body. Now all has been heard. Now these are his final words. All has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment. You think he knew about that? including every hidden thing, whether it be good or evil. So he's saying there at the end, don't go where I went. Don't do that. And yet people do it all the time. So I think at the end of his life, when he's it's kind of like gathering your family around when you know you're about to die, gathering your family around, and each one you're saying something of the last words. This is his last words to us. I did it. It didn't. It was vanity and vexation of spirit, emptiness. It was nothing but emptiness. But here's the conclusion of the matter: fear God, keep His commandments. That's my last words. Powerful stuff. Let's pray. Father, thank you for Solomon and the experiences that he had and how they teach us. How they teach us of your grace and your mercy. How they teach us of consequences for the actions that we take when they are in direct rebellion against you. I pray, God, that each decision that we make about life decisions and just everyday decisions would be done in accordance with what your will is for our life. May all that we do, all that we say, all that we practice be for simply to glorify you. Watch over us and protect us this week. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Thank you all.